Hey everybody, welcome back to the Boston-Raleigh channel. It's time to do more China, episode 7. We're gonna watch the Yuckies, because Yuckies happened last time. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, last episode, we had Yuckies. The communists, by Mao Zedong, they won. They sent Shanghai Shek to Taiwan. They had all the stuff that they wanted. They won. Let's see what happens. It's probably not good, right? The east is red and the sun rises. In China, there emerges Mao Zedong. East is red, revolutionary song. Bruh. He is the dong. Awful, crappy dong.
China, 1949.
Oh boy.
From Peking's Tiananmen Square, Communist leader Mao Zedong has proclaimed the establishment of the People's Republic of China.
Seems like a real People's Republic, you know. Also, it's funny to me, that's literally China, modern China, except for Tibet. The Tibet area is still not, I guess, acquired by them yet as of that point. However, it is worth noting that at this point they're about, what, 31 years into all of this stuff? Like, the last 2 episodes have taken place within the scope. 2.5 episodes, pretty much, have taken scope within the course of 31 years. That's 5 episodes our time, because I'm reacting to, like, I'm doing 2 reactions per Epic History episode. So that's 5 episodes worth of time, 31 years, a lot of war, a lot of death, a lot of Peking duck. But there's no more duck. It's going to get a lot less ducky in here.
A new age for China, for the Chinese Communist Party, and for Chairman Mao.
You know, one thing I gotta say is, when your leader has that bad of hair, that's probably a bad sign.
He has devoted his life to revolution, and to his dream of transforming China.
But not his hairstyle.
Now is his moment.
Yuppers.
Mao's government calls itself a People's Democratic Dictatorship.
See, that's funny. I always thought democratic meant that you vote people in. I mean, maybe you could just vote in your dictator, you know, every so many years. That's not usually how dictatorships work, if I'm not mistaken.
But democracy is not on the agenda.
Well, obviously.
Instead, the heart of government is the Central Committee of around 100 senior party members.
Yuck.
Above
The
that,
oligarchy.
the 12-strong Politburo. And within that, the Politburo's Standing Committee, where true power lies.
Dude, not
There are
even
5
in the
members, including Liu Shaoqi, a veteran labor organizer who studied in Moscow.
Bruh.
He is now vice chairman of the Communist Party.
He was studying on that communism.
Zhou Enlai, a hero of the revolution,
You remember him,
once
right?
Mao's superior within the party, but who has now publicly and privately committed to Mao's leadership.
Right.
Charming and polite, he has shown a great talent for diplomacy and will serve as Communist China's first state premier and foreign minister. And Mao himself, chairman of the Chinese Communist Party and paramount leader.
Also, male pattern Chinese baldness.
Aged 55, Mao now wields unchallenged personal authority, the result of his inspiring leadership in the struggle against the Japanese and nationalists. Though never a natural orator, Mao is a charismatic figure, capable of deep intellectual thought, shrewd political tactics, and stirring writing. Since 1938, he has been married to his 4th wife, the famous actress Jiang Qing.
His 4th wife. See, fellas, if your chair of the CCP is on his 4th wife, maybe that's a sign.
She is a powerful personality in her own right, ferociously loyal to Mao, and scathing of his rivals.
Isn't that how China's supposed to be, though?
Real or imagined. After years of revolution, invasion, and civil war, China is impoverished and in desperate need of reform and rebuilding. The Communist Party gets to work immediately to impose a vision on the country that is heavily inspired by Soviet thinking. To this end, around 10,000 Soviet advisors arrive in China to assist in reconstruction. The country remains an overwhelmingly agrarian society. In 1949, by rough estimate, every fifth person on Earth is a Chinese peasant.
You know, it's really hard to think about when you think about things like population. Because it's hard to imagine. You see that one country all the way on the other side of the world. There's a lot of people in the world just live there. Almost nobody lives anywhere else, it seems like. At least according to their numbers. But what I'll say is Russia knows how to rebuild garbage. I mean, they've been doing. See, this is the problem. Is that World War I brought about Russia being the modern Russia. Well, not quite the modern Russia. The Soviet Union, Soviet Russia, right? You had Russian architects come to China. We recreated everything, but like build back communist, and China's not doing well anymore. That's what's gonna happen. I mean, China was never doing well at this point. Maybe this is part of the problem, is that if you let a society kind of just sit in mildew for long enough, you're eventually going to get something like this. But there's a lot of Chinese peasants, a lot of farm labor, and that could go really well. You'd think they'd have a surplus of food, right? I mean, that's what I would think. If one in five people on Earth is a Chinese peasant, almost all these people are agrarian. Should be a ton of food. Let's see what happens.
They have long provided the base for communist success in China.
Yep.
Wooed by the promise of land redistribution, which has been enforced in communist-controlled areas since the early 1930s.
Yeah.
Now it is to be rolled out on a national scale. Rural landowners, who have dominated the Chinese countryside for centuries, are vilified for abusing their power over peasants. They are publicly humiliated by the communists, put on trial, and executed in huge numbers.
This seems like the Jacobins all over again. More on that in a French Revolution video if we ever do that kind of series.
More than 1 million are killed. Their land is seized and redistributed. Over the next 3 years, about 300 million peasants receive land for the first time. Early reforms are intended to fundamentally reshape Chinese society. New laws improve the rights of women and protect their role in the workforce.
Oof.
To improve literacy rates of just 20%, the government promotes the use of simplified Chinese characters.
Wait a minute, they're just gonna dumb it down? I didn't know that. So they made Chinese simpler so people could read more? I mean, I don't understand. Why wouldn't you just, like, teach people to read?
Huge propaganda drives in theaters, public storytelling and posters aim to both educate and indoctrinate in communist revolutionary values.
You know, it seems like they kind of altered something. From that angle, you can't see how bad his hair is. So clearly this is propaganda.
Suspected counter-revolutionaries, such as nationalist sympathizers, corrupt officials and capitalists, are to be reported and
Man, I wouldn't last very long here.
eliminated.
I really wouldn't last very long here.
The campaigns upend China's traditional class structure, humiliating and impoverishing bourgeois and middle-class families.
Hold on a minute. You want to own something? You want to like start a business and make money? Put to death.
The number of victims
Put to
is
death.
impossible to quantify. But hundreds
Why
of
are you
thousands suffer loss of status, confiscation of property, or imprisonment.
Yep.
Some are even forced to take their own lives.
The atom bomb is a paper tiger, which the U.S. reactionaries used to scare people. Mao's 1946. The atom bomb is definitely not a paper tiger. Whether or not the United States or anyone else is a paper tiger is a different story. The atom bomb is very real. See, Zedong is all propaganda. China in the world, 1949 and 1953. I don't know about that.
China's new communist leaders seek to build alliances abroad. But World War II has been followed by the Cold War.
It was cold because Russia. Look at Russia on the map. Clearly, it's a Cold War.
And the world is now divided between a democratic, capitalist West
Hey,
and the Soviet-led communist bloc.
Boo.
The Western powers offer no support to communist China.
Of course not.
In fact, they continue to recognize their wartime ally, Chiang Kai-shek, as China's legitimate ruler.
Yay!
His authoritarian nationalist government, officially known as the Republic of China, still holds Taiwan and small islands in the Taiwan Strait. Inevitably, it is to the Soviet Union that Mao turns. In December 1949,
You know what's wild is they still have Mongolia. Like China plus Mongolia areas here.
he travels to Moscow for 3 months of talks with Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin.
Uh-oh. It's the worst duo.
Their relationship is not an easy one. In imposing his own brand of communism in China, Mao has often overruled his Soviet-backed rivals.
You know, I think he's just a little bit jealous when you look at someone like the Georgian over there, not U.S. Georgia, but Middle East Georgia. You look at that Georgian. Look at that Georgian hair. Then you look at Mao. That's what Chinese hair looks like to the rest of the world. It's not a good position to be able to, you know, not a good position to be able to do diplomacy from.
Nevertheless, in February 1950, the two leaders sign a treaty of friendship, alliance, and mutual assistance, unlocking economic and military cooperation.
You know, I really have been going to town on this man's hair, but it looks awful. Like, maybe this is just me, but even in Russia, Stalin can afford the hair. Mao can't even afford a full head of hair.
Between China and the Soviet Union. By the 18th century, the Qing dynasty had added several remote western territories to its empire.
Right.
Mongolia,
Right.
Xinjiang, and Tibet. But in the tumult following the 1911 revolution, they had escaped Chinese control.
Yup.
Now the communist government acts to reimpose central authority. In 1949, the People's Liberation Army is sent to reoccupy Xinjiang.
Oh boy.
In 1951, Tibet is occupied and annexed, following a short conflict the Chinese government euphemistically calls the peaceful liberation of Tibet.
Of course it's a peaceful liberation. The Tibets are usually... So, Tibet, very, very Buddhist, very non-aggressive. Easy pickings for the PLO. Or, well, PLA.
As part of the settlement, the Dalai Lama is allowed to remain at the head of a local government. No attempt is made to regain Outer Mongolia, which is now within the Soviet sphere of influence.
Yay! Well, that's not that much better, but it's still not China.
Taiwan remains a major source of contention. Both the communists and Chiang's nationalists continue to denounce the other side as bandits and their governments as illegitimate. Elsewhere, China's borders seem settled. But in 1950, the People's Republic of China faces a major conflict on its doorstep: the Korean War.
I mean, you could consider it a major conflict on its doorstep, but it's more so an opportunity by their understanding. They'd rather just, they would like this to happen. In my opinion, this is very good for China overall.
After World War II, Korea had been divided into two separate states,
Right.
a communist north and democratic south.
You know what's funny is it's the naming scheme. Look at that, it's identical. Democratic People's Republic of Korea, like Democratic Republic of, the People's Republic of China, which is supposedly democracy. And then we got the Republic of Korea, kind of like you have the Republic of China. Which one of these is Democrat, and which one of these, well, Democratic? Which one of these is Democratic? Which one of these seems to belong to the people in a bigger sense? I wonder if it's not the one that's named the People's Republic or the Democratic People's Republic, you know?
In June 1950, northern forces invade the south, advancing rapidly and capturing Seoul within a week.
Yikers schmikers.
Korea becomes a Cold War battleground. Under US leadership, UN troops intervene in support of South Korea. By the end of the year, they have pushed the front line back to the Yalu River, close to the North Korean-Chinese border. Fearing a US-led invasion and hoping to shore up a communist ally, Mao sends in Chinese troops to support North Korea. More than 1 million Chinese troops enter the battle, soon rising to 2.5 million. In the face of this onslaught, UN forces retreat south. After months of heavy fighting, the war enters a stalemate. Both sides dig in along the 38th parallel.
Uh-oh. See, this is the funny thing about the Korean War. We always think about this as an old war. Back in the 1950s, officially this war really hasn't even ended. Because it just seems to be the case that along that little border, you have a demilitarized zone where people aren't allowed to cross, and it's just kind of like we'll agree to disagree and just set up camp in our own side of Korea here.
In 1953, an armistice is agreed.
Yep.
And this becomes the heavily fortified border between North and South Korea.
Armistices are not, well, okay, they're not fake, but they definitely don't end the war. Armistice usually famously does not end in the end of the conflict, you know. Armistices usually eventually pick back up at some point.
Known as the DMZ, Demilitarized Zone.
Someday, man.
For China and for Mao, the Korean War is presented as a triumph. They have championed the global socialist cause and stood up to the US superpower. Perhaps even more importantly, communist legitimacy within China is greatly bolstered.
You know, I got a question for you guys in the comments. Without the beauty mark, would Mao be as big of a dictator? Would he have the same kind of PR if it weren't for that mole on his chin? Let me know in the comments. Is it about the hair or is it about the mole? Which one is the real big detractor and which one is the real which one gives people confidence in this man? Which one is it?
But it comes at a huge cost. The Korean War claims an estimated 3 million lives.
That's a lot. Korea doesn't have that many people.
Chinese military casualties are more than 500,000, possibly
That's
many
wild.
more.
I mean, imagine you go get sent to influence your neighboring country here, you'll lose 500,000 soldiers just to kind of come to a stalemate. I don't think either side was very happy with the end of the conflict, but overall, this is kind of like, even though it's not really a win for either side, this definitely feels more like a Chinese win, because there is another, like, it's not really a half country, just two separate countries now, North and South Korea. There's another country that is now in favorable circumstances from the perspective of the CCP. So, you know, it's not good.
They include Mao's own son, Mao An-ing,
Well, he
killed
was
in a
committed to the
UN
cause,
airstrike
apparently.
while serving with Chinese forces. In its efforts to curb the spread of communism, the US has now imposed a total trade embargo on communist
Yay.
China.
We're not the only country that can trade with them, but we're the country that could trade the most with them, potentially. That's a good thing.
The war has also strengthened US support for Chiang Kai-shek's government in Taiwan,
Well, of course.
with President Truman sending the US 7th Fleet to deter a potential communist attack.
Very good, very good. Let 100 flowers bloom. Maoist slogan. Oh, from 1956. 100 flowers? It's not very many. Can't afford more. The first 5-year plan. Ooh, no.
In 1953, China's government introduces its first 5-year plan, inspired by similar economic programs in the Soviet Union. One aim is to swiftly and massively increase Chinese industrial output. Huge efforts, backed by Soviet technical expertise, produce remarkable results in transport, industry, and infrastructure.
Bold plan, Cotton. Let's see if it works.
Production of coal, iron, and steel all exceed their ambitious targets.
But can they use it?
While China becomes a major oil producer for the first time. The second aim of the 5-year plan is to rapidly boost agricultural output.
Right.
To this end, the Communist Party pushes farmers to collectivize on a massive scale, forming cooperatives that include dozens, sometimes hundreds of households.
So, is this the best idea here? We're going to form these cooperatives, right? They all share the work. They share everything. Dozens to hundreds of families that are all working together in harmony. Of course, of course.
By 1956, 80% of peasant households belong to a cooperative, meaning they share the land, tools, and harvest.
Share. We are all supposed to share, right? Maybe not.
Cooperatives also have an ideological aim: to tighten party control over the lives and thoughts of rural communities.
No independent
At
thought.
breakneck speed, communist reforms are overturning a rural way of life that's centuries old.
Out with the old and in with the CCP. That's what they always say. The Great Leap Forward. Helping China get through another day. Maybe. Maybe if you're lucky. Maybe if you're lucky. I don't know. I think that generally individualized success provides the best impetus for striving to achieve and succeed. I think that collectivism generally just lowers everything to the lowest common denominator. But we'll see. We'll see. How does this go? How does this
And sowing the seeds of disaster.
go? Oh no, not disaster. Who could have predicted?
Mao is encouraged by the apparent success of the first 5-year plan. Hoping to encourage further innovation, in 1956 he announces, "Let 100 flowers bloom, let 100 schools of thought contend." It is an
right.
invitation for others to come forward with constructive proposals for the government. In response, criticism of the party comes flooding in, from intellectuals, academics, and scientists.
Uh-oh.
Mao
like
and the
people aren't
leadership
happy.
are dismayed and angered. Rather than welcome proposals, they move to crush what they now regard as dangerous dissent.
Dissent is always dangerous when it comes to communism. That's the only way it ever works.
A new anti-rightist campaign punishes at least 500,000 men and women who are considered insufficiently loyal to the party. Penalties include public humiliation, hard labor, and execution.
Yep. Yep. They wanted constructive criticism, but they can't actually handle the constructive criticism. Right? They wanted ideas, but they can't handle them. If there is a collectivist organization, they will never, ever, if they know what's good for them as a collectivist organization, ever invite any kind of free thought, any kind of criticism. Let 100 flowers bloom. More like, give us your 100 flowers, and we'll give you the flower we're going to give you anyway. You know? You're going to get the communist flower. No nutrition, only communism. As they said, anti-rightist. That's the only thing about communism that exists is you cannot ever question the authority of the Communist Party. They wanted ideas, they got what they were going to get. And so this is what happens. Definitely be sure to let me know if you want to keep seeing the rest of these. We're probably just doing all of them. You know, we're 5 episodes away. I will see you again next week. Have a good one. Definitely be sure to go check out The Great Leap Forward, this video on Epic History. And yeah, give them a lot of views. I think they're good. I think they're good channel. I think this is enjoyable. I think this is fun. This part of history is not quite fun. I'll be honest. It's a little bleak and dreary. But we'll see what happens in the next episode. Have a good one. Bye-bye.